Okay, so we had our consultation just around the corner a minute ago. And I'm sure you guys know this, but that's like probably, it's the biggest part of like retaining your clients is talking to them. I think something that helped me when I was first starting was to think about what I would like as a client, how I would like to be communicated to. Because I think we get used to like being in school and hearing words like layers and placement, and they just mean a certain thing to them, and we kind of fly through it when we're talking to our clients. But they might have a different idea of what layers mean, and then you guys are kind of miscommunicating. And so, a picture is worth 1,000 words. Jess sent me a couple pictures, and in them, basically, her end goal is to have like more of a subtle blend, so that it's more of an ombre right now, grown out, where her line starts like there, and she wants it to be subtle, to be brought up, not so much so that it wouldn't, when it would grow out, it would look like this, but she can continue to grow it into her natural color. So, in order to do that, we talked about where she parts, which is huge, I think, with doing color, something that's like a balayage where it's not an all over foil. It really depends on where you part your hair. Yes?
I was going to say, wait, because did we just say that I part it usually in the middle?
Mm-hmm.
I don't part it usually in the middle. It's usually to the side, but today it's in the middle.
Okay, so
Sorry.
this side?
Yeah.
No, that's okay. I would say that that's where you want to go. Because when you flip it, when they part on the side, there's always a little bit of like a swoosh or like some inconsistency. So, you know, when you flip your hair, it'll kind of like fall a certain way. But when you part it in the middle, it's like a line. And so if anybody ever parts in the middle, you want that to be like, to look really clean and to look really blended. So, since you do it sometimes, I'm gonna foil in the middle.
Okay.
What else was I going to say? There's a million ways to do this. I think the main thing that's helped me is just figuring out what's intuitive for you. There's a bunch of rules, and then there's a bunch of people that break them, and then it looks great, and it's just all dependent on what you're best at, what you're most comfortable with. So, and on different people, I do a bunch of different placements and a bunch of different foilings. It just kind of depends on the thickness of their hair, how they wear it, what they want. There's no like right way. The only right way is to like make it look cute, you know. So okay, let's get you draped. I'm gonna start in the back. This is cute. It's like a little barber cape. Okay. So she also talked about wanting to lighten up the ends a little bit. But since she had mentioned wanting to go darker maybe in a couple months and then eventually grow it out to her natural color, I'm not going to lighten all the ends because I don't think she wants that much of like a contrast. But what I'm going to do is, typically when you do like a lightening service, you'll do maybe a partial. So, you know, you leave the bottom half out. But I feel like sometimes that just looks so stark. It's like if you pull your hair forward, it's all dark down here. And so, especially since Jess already has a little bit of color in her hair, what I'm going to do is, instead of leaving out like this bottom half and starting right here, I'm going to kind of, and you wear your hair up a lot, don't you? Maybe
Yeah.
not now that it's shorter.
Sometimes. No, I have been. I wear it to school.
I'm going to kind of almost like leave this middle section untouched because she already has a little bit of color in it, and so I don't think we're not going to miss it. Yeah. Okay, so I am going to start, I'm going to start with two levels in my bowl. I'm going to start with 10 and 20 because since we're going to lighten up the ends a little bit, we want a little bit of a bump, but I don't want to put 20 on the ends because they're already processed, and we're not trying to lift them from her natural color. So I'm going to use 10 on them so that it keeps the integrity intact. Also, I don't measure. I just kind of get it to the consistency that you feel comfortable with. And I mean, I think that's a personal thing. I like it a little bit thicker so that I feel like I have more control when I'm painting. But whatever works. Okay, also, I would recommend with brushes, I forget what brand this is, Goldwell, but it's really flexible. And I think a lot of the brushes we got at school are like they're a little more stiff. It's such a game changer, at least for me, when there's flexibility in the bristles. I think you have more control and it's kind of like more of an even blend, and it also can get like in between the hairs, better saturation. Also, I just started using like actual paintbrushes. I think it's such a great blend. The bristles are really inconsistent, so I feel like it gives, especially for something like this where she doesn't need like full saturation and she doesn't need any like specific lines, but rather the opposite. We want it to be inconsistent and kind of blended and like feathered. I feel like this gives you there's more space between the bristles. I don't really know why it works, but I find it really helpful. So I'm going to use this to, like when I bring it up into her natural color. So this bottom piece, I feel like you have to be careful with sometimes, especially because it's like what you see when you put it up. You don't want it to be streaky. So I'm gonna, and then I'm gonna tease. Teasing is my best friend, I feel like, in this process. And then I'm just kind of painting up to the root here because since it's at the bottom, you'll see it coming up from the root, so from the nape.
So on one strand, you're doing 20 on the top.
So this one I'm just going to leave it 20 because there was no previous processing on it. But when we get to the parts that are already lightened, I'm going to do 20 at top and then 10 at the bottom. So sectioning. Gosh, there's so many different techniques. I think something that's really good when you're painting or balayaging is to like switch up your technique, because if you switch it up, then there's a lot of room for there to be just like different blends. Whereas if you're doing one technique the whole time, then you can maybe see some lines, or actually I'm going to make this section small. Maybe see some lines, or just if you're really consistent, then you can tell like where where it starts and ends, as opposed to switching up your technique a little bit or your sections. So maybe I'll take some diagonal once I get a little bit further up into the head, as opposed to just like straight across. What else?
So you weave it first, then you tease it.
Yeah.
Sorry, this side over here.
Yeah, I weaved it and then I'm teasing it because she wants it really blended, if not to look, and there's any foil lines. And unless you're using like a clay lightener, which obviously we don't have, you need to use foils. And so if you're using foils, I think it's way safer to use like multiple kind of blending techniques. So this one I'm going to do a little bit of a V, just because on the bottom one I just kind of took it all the way up to the root, and I'm going to maybe alternate so that there's more of a blend.
If you were going to use this
It's really close to her root. I'm going to start using the foils just as a square. I feel like it's kind of a time saver and gives you enough space to cover from ear to ear, as opposed to maybe sectioning it up into two, especially when you're done at the bottom. I don't really think it makes a difference. So I'm going to saturate the ends with this one, and I weaved and then teased. Yeah. I'm gonna, once I start to get up into the middle, I'm gonna skip a few, but to create that like shadow or that depth.
It depends on how much blonde you want.
Exactly, and she doesn't want to be like super blonde, just more of a blend. So I'm just basically, I painted a V with the Goldwell, and then I'm just coming up, and since I already teased it and weaved it, there's not much like scare of having a line because you've already had those two kind of blending techniques intact. So now I'm just kind of painting up. And also, it's not super important to make sure that your packets are like really airtight when you're doing a technique like this, because you're not going for like maximum lift. I'm gonna skip a little bit now and assess to see how much blonde is already here. Yeah, so she has a pretty significant amount of lightener at the roots. I mean, at the ends. So I'm gonna leave a lot of this section out. I'm basically just gonna, it's almost like I'm skipping maybe like two or three small sections. And then I'm gonna start back up here and blend it in. Okay. So yeah, now I'm gonna take two sections. Again, I'm going to weave. Actually, that's a little thin. You don't have to take thin sections here because you are weaving and then teasing. And so if you take your sections too thin, you might not get as much lightener applied to their hair as they want, because there's just not enough like surface space. Okay.
That foil, can you show us after you apply?
Mm-hmm. So sometimes closer to the bottom of the nape, I usually just put the foil down and then paint on top of it because you have like their neck to support it. But I think as I get up here, I usually kind of just use some tension. And so much of it is just about like feel. Got a little there. I'm kind of doing like a W right now, I guess. And especially with a retouch, because it's kind of like, it's easy to just paint this whole like pretty head of hair, but with a retouch, you're working on top of either your work or someone else's work. And I think a big thing to remember is that less is probably more with something like a balayage retouch. So I'm actually not going to fully saturate the ends here because I did it on the bottom three, and we don't want to lighten up all her ends. So I'm just going to kind of connect it with where her old color was. So I'll show you guys. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side.
When you're rinsing out a section that's teased, do you like comb it out first, or you wait until like you shampoo it?
Kind of depends on the person.
Yeah, I don't know what type it is, or
Yeah, like I'm probably just gonna wash Jess's hair and then brush it out after.
If it was like super thick and curly, would you try and like brush it out?
Yeah, in the bowl. And I usually tell clients, like after, hey, I teased your hair, like that's, I don't know if you felt that while I was doing the process or saw that, but because sometimes people freak out, like, oh my god, my hair's fried and not brushing out and tangled and whatever. And so it's like really important to communicate that to your clients so they don't freak out. And I got it all, and so I folded it up in its little packet. So I'm working with the 20 here, and then when I get to the top of her head, I'm going to switch to 30 because I prefer to be able to watch the hair and take the foils out when I think they're at the desired level. I know you can't always do that if you have multiple clients at one time or whatnot, but I think that obviously it will keep the hair the most intact if you only lift it to, if you want a 7 and you get it to a 7, instead of taking it all to a 9 because you just want to do the whole head and then toning it. I mean, again, I know that's not always possible, but I'm gonna be like opening her foils and watching them, and if I think that a certain foil is at where I want it to be, I'm gonna take it out because obviously it'll continue to process a little bit, but not as much without the foil in it. So a lot of the time I don't even end up toning if somebody wants more of a warmer or a natural tone. Okay, so I'm kind of taking them diagonal down, diagonal back now, because I was taking a lot of them straight across, and I want to start to kind of switch it up so that the goal would be that when I get to the top, you're kind of, well, I'll tell you when I get there. So same thing, I'm just going to weave and tease for pretty much her whole head.
What volume do you use now?
Pardon?
What volume do you use now?
This is 20 still. So I'm using 20 on her virgin hair. And this one I'm just going to do a little bit of a V because I kind of W'd on the last one. So I want to switch it up a little bit. And I am going to, actually I'm going to use this. I'm going to use the 10 on her ends. Did you guys have those dream weavers come? Do they still? Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
What do you do when
Did you like them?
the man of the hair is like was really long hair? What kind of
That's a good question.
this technique?
Yeah, I mean, I do the same technique. I think that, something that's really important when clients are finding pictures is the length of the hair in the picture. So, it's a really good question, actually. So again, I'm just doing like a little V over here, and not bringing it. I'm bringing the ends all the way to the root, but the middle just kind of halfway up. Yeah, I think that I use the same technique. It's just obviously going to be a little bit elongated with longer hair. But I think that something that I notice a lot is that people will find pictures of maybe like someone that they just think is like cute. And, you know, their hair is completely different length, different tone, different everything, and they're like, I like this. And I think what's really important is to ask them what they like about it. Do you like how blonde she is? Do you like where her blonde is? Do you like, you know, to be more specific instead of assuming like they want this hair? Because sometimes they'll be like, oh, no, I hate that it's like caramely. I just like that the ends are brighter. And you're like, oh, okay. So especially with length, I think that's really important because people don't typically think of length when they're finding pictures. But with shorter hair or longer hair, I think I might take this one all the way across actually. Like switch it up a little bit. Yeah, it just obviously like depends on the desired placement. I got all messed up. But I'd say this technique is pretty like across the board, you know, because you have all those kind of safeguards in place with switching up your sectioning, with weaving, and with teasing. And then with your inconsistent painting, it's like there's kind of no, you can make it like whatever you want. There's a lot of variables to change. Sometimes I'll do, if someone says, everybody says I want balayage. I don't know if anyone knows what it means. I don't even know if I know what it means. I think it's just basically I want pretty blonde hair. So if someone's like, I want balayage, and then they show me a picture of pretty much like a full head foil highlight. It's like, okay, well, you explain to them, so I'm tucking this one under, like near the corners, because I'm gonna pretty much saturate this whole piece. I feel like I was pretty sparse with the last view. So I'm gonna do like a W here. But I'm really gonna kind of go for it.
Do you want us to show it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We'll turn.
Okay.
So you can see your face.
Are you wanting the top to be lighter than the bottom half of the hair? Is that why you're switching to 30 volume?
No, I'm gonna switch to 30 because I want the front to be able to catch up to the back.
Got it.
Because the back's gonna be on longer. Tickling me. So, and then 10 for the ends. But what I was going to say was that sometimes if somebody comes to me and they're like, I want a full, actually, let me show you guys. Okay. So, yeah, you want to make sure when you're folding your foils that you're aware of the pieces that don't have bleach on them, that when you fold, you don't overlap. And that'll create like a lot of spotty kind of calicos. So sometimes if someone says they want a balayage, but they show me a picture of like a full blonde, I'll talk with them about like maintenance and that I can totally do like a foil to the root. And if they're willing, the only problem with that is maintenance. They have to come in frequently, and most people obviously are like, oh no, I don't want that. But they still want to be really bright. And so what I'll do is I'll do this kind of same technique with the sectioning. And so this one I'm gonna just do that like retouch where I don't touch the ends. I'm just gonna kind of paint a little bit up at the top where it's her virgin hair, and then leave those ends how they are. So I'll do like the same sectioning, maybe a little bit thinner, closer together because they want more blonde. And instead of painting like in a W or a V, I'll weave, I'll tease, and then I'll bring it all the way up. And then so they're like pretty blonde. And then at the top maybe, or like the front, maybe do that painting so that they have more of like it's kind of like a built-in root smudge without having to tone. So they have a little bit of like a buffer of grow out. And I feel like probably most people end up wanting that. So same over here, just 20. Paint it in. I'm going to leave the ends out. So I took 2 diagonal back sections there, and I'm going to take a little straight across one here. Okay. actually going to switch to this brush because I want to have a little more control up here because I feel like this is where it starts to matter. So I'm going to saturate this, the ends, because I left them out on the last one. Oh, this is good. Something to not be afraid of when you're doing a touch-up, or even just like a first-time balayage, is to bring those like skinny those skinny lines. I know it like looks scary when they're in the hair and you're like, oh my god, it's gonna be like just a streak. But if you weaved and teased, it really can create like a beautiful, natural kind of like sun streaked look without it looking like there's just a chunk. I think that's probably one of the #1 ways to like blend previous balayage. I'm gonna check on my little guy down here. I feel like her hair is gonna lift fairly quickly. That's really good. Head. You know, obviously everybody's hair like falls differently, so you want to be aware of people's cowlicks. Typically when I get to this point, it's kind of like, it's different for each person. I try to see how the hair falls naturally. Do you feel like you have an issue with your cowlick? Does it ever like go flat or bother you? Yeah. Do you ever think about it, or do you feel like it's fine?
Only when I sleep on. Like, it always usually just looks.
But it doesn't like separate usually.
No.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to take another piece straight across, just because I want to kind of get the top really blended. I want to like be able to hit more up at the root, so I could get more surface space. I'm going to use a gold well again, because I feel like with this big flat surface, I really want to make sure that I have some control. So I'm just taking it down. I'm leaving out her ends again because I fully saturated the last one. So I'm going to start to make this a little dramatic here where the V, I'm doing a W, but where the W is a little deeper. So the lines are a little more like swooping up. Okay. So I'm kind of going with the way that her hair grows right now. Finding like where it falls naturally because that's how she's going to wear it most of the time. So I think that's really important with something like this kind of lived-in natural color is that you're really conscientious of like how they wear their hair or how their hair falls. I'm going to take a thinner piece here. I want it to be like a little more dainty. And I'm going to paint this whole piece up to the root. So the reason why I'm painting this one up to the root is because a lot of times it's like where our hair gets like really dirty. We touch it a lot back there, and it makes it look cleaner when it's lighter. That's basically it. So I'm just like painting this whole piece. And then I'm just going to kind of feather it down at the ends. I don't want to fully saturate. Okay, so this is like the most important piece at the back. That's fine. Thanks. So I'm just going to like let the hair fall where it goes, and I'm going to weave from there. And then tease. A little bit. It's a thin section. And I'm going to use the paintbrush because I want it to be really blended up here. And I'm going to do a V. I did a W on the last one. I think something that's helpful too is brushing up. If you have enough tension, when you brush up, it's just like it naturally kind of fades off at the top. It's like really pretty. And then I'm going to saturate the ends on this one with 10. I'm going to start on this side because typically when she parts here, and it's just faster to get through the lighter side. I'm also going to do like call it like a flip piece. So she says this is where she normally parts, and it's like flipping her hair. So you want to be aware of, you know, like if you get your hair colored in the middle and then you flip it, it's like brown right there. So you want to be aware of like giving a little extra oomph to that section right there. You obviously have to be careful using 30 or 40, especially like on a new client. I would not do that, or someone that has never gotten their hair colored. But Jess has had her hair colored, and I told her I was using 30. She didn't say anything, so I'm sure it's fine. So I'm just going to use tension here because it's a little awkward to get the foil in there. Yeah, so if you think about your hair like your hair goes down and back. If you went this way, it's not how your hair naturally falls. I've done it before. It's not a big difference, but I feel like you see the lines more when you go the other way. And this is just, I don't know, to me it feels more intuitive. It makes more sense because it feels like that's how your hair is going to naturally fall, you know what I mean? So I just saturated the top, leaving the ends out. I feel like I find myself moving to the Goldwell brush more in the front. I feel like when you have thinner pieces, you have more control with this brush. I use the paintbrush more when I'm doing like a lot of hair or bigger sections. I'm going to saturate the ends on this one. Yeah. Okay, so I sectioned out kind of like, I guess this would be the mohawk, because I really want to make sure that I give this like a good kind of root smudge, and it's just easier to do when it's not diagonal. So I'm going to take a straight across piece, actually I'm going to cut a little thicker. And then I'm going to kind of do some of those like skinny lines I talked about that are scary, but cute. So weave it out. I don't know, I'm going to tease a little bit. And then I'm going to pull this all the way up to the root like I'm doing a foil highlight so that I have more control. Tease a little bit. that you see your palette kind of clearly. And then I'm just going to connect it to where her previous highlights are. And I'm going to bring less up. Because the whole goal is to have it be like more of a natural blend that she can grow out. So we don't want there to be a ton of blonde up top. So just these kind of like thinner pieces. And there's the same up here. I'm going to make that a little thicker. You don't have to be afraid of thicker sections when you're balayaging, which is nice, because you're not saturating the whole strand. The only thing you want to be wary of is making sure that you don't make them too far apart to where if somebody like pulls their hair back or wears it up, you can tell like where the lines are. So same thing, I'm just going to kind of take it down to where her previous color is. And I did like a W on the last one. I think I'm going to do that again because this section's a little wider. Bringing it a little more up in front. Everybody likes those face framers. And then when I'm done with this section, I'm going to check on the back. I feel like it's probably where I want it to be. I'm actually going to make this too. And I don't think I'm going to tease on this one. I'm just going to take a super thin section. And I'm going to bring this one a little higher up, a little more saturation. Just to kind of like switch it up a little bit. Okay, so this one, and I'm not going to tease this one either. It's so thin. And use that 30. I'm going to saturate the ends on this one. A lot of it is just about like just being inconsistent and like switching it up, because if you're not layering things, if you're, you know, saturating the ends on some and not on the others, then it's going to naturally be more varied and more blended. Okay, I'm going to check on the basket. So these will obviously develop slower because they're not in a foil. That's fine, because we're just trying to blend it a little bit and not, you know, like brighten it up a ton. So it'll be really pretty here. And not putting it in foil gives the advantage of not having it like squished, you know, so it's like that natural kind of fall off. It'll look really pretty. Okay. So, thank you. So paint this with 30. And these sections are like, you don't have to be as careful with being like specific and sharp with your sectioning. Thank you. because they're already like at a corner and they're already like a little triangle and they've kind of got a built-in like angle on them. So I'm just gonna sandwich that in. It's kind of a thick piece, so I'm painting a lot over the top.
Yes, do this.
Yeah, so I feel like this is me just knowing Jess. I feel like you are gonna part your hair more in the middle
Okay.
than you, I don't know, like I've seen you do that a lot. And so I'm just being, I mean, I kind of set my course in the beginning, knowing that I wanted to have those straight lines going out from the middle. So you can't really, I guess, like depart for that once you've started. But there's never any harm in, like, I rarely take the mohawk back. I'm trying to think of like, oh, that's 10. I'm trying to think of any time I would do that. I mean, like I literally never do it because that's not how your hair falls. So this one I'm going to kind of like angle back because it's kind of doing that naturally and I think that's pretty. Yeah, so I'm just being aware of knowing that she wears it in the middle sometimes and wears it on the side sometimes. We kind of worked in that little like angle over there so that it won't be just like brown on that side. But I feel like the days of taking the mohawk back are kind of diminishing, just because not many, at least not many of my clients like that, want that like Laguna Beach blonde. It's 3. Actually, let's see.
Let's see.
So again, I'm kind of taking it up to the root with a foil because these are really important and I want to have a lot of control with them. So I'm going to connect it. And then I'm going to do a little V all the way to the top. How you doing? Me? Yeah, I'm good. Okay. Okay, so I came all the way to the top with this piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a little slice out. Just to kind of create that barrier between the sections. Then I'm going to take a super thin section here. I'm not going to tease it because I want to see exactly what's happening. So I brush up flat like that sometimes when I feel like I'm not getting enough blend with this. It just kind of like feathers it up in a way that's really, really pretty. It's kind of like a seamless blend. Okay, I'm going to check on the back. So I think it's really pretty. It's like a level maybe. Darker than Perens, which is cute. Okay, so since this is 30, I feel like I need to give it a little peek just to make sure nothing weird is happening before I start on the front. Okay, that one's pretty close. I'm gonna take that out. Again, you don't always have time to be this like on it with the foils. But if you do, I feel like, see, this is lifting quickly. If you do, I just think it's so much better for the hair to just kind of like stop it at that desired level. You have to make sure if you're using this technique that you don't press it down to the head, because then it'll like fully saturate that section and make you look bald. It's not fun. Baby hairs. Okay, so I'm going to take a tiny little section here. And I remember when I like watching people do this, being like, that is a pointless section. It's so small. It literally makes all the difference. And I'm going to, sorry, it's on your face. I'm going to fully saturate it. It's also not going to be in as long as all the others, so it's not going to, you know, lift to like this bright blonde. But we do want her to be a little brighter around the face, so I'm fully saturating that with 30. And I'm going to make it a little packet. So again, I'm going to take this to the root. And a little bit of a blend on this. But I still want to get a lot of saturation because it's the front. So, put that out of your face. And then I'm going to blend up. And since I'm going to packet it, I want to protect that bottom part from saturating the part on top where I didn't paint. And one more. So, we'll see. But I doubt it. Do you see how that back is like a pretty crumble? I like that. And we talked about it, and she obviously wants her hair like a warmer tone. I feel like, depending on the front, because 30 can make it be yellowy sometimes. So I don't want that, so maybe I'll put something on it. But get that out of your face. Okay. And now I'm just gonna check. And wait.
Yeah. So I'm not, you know, like I'm not around anyone. I'm not inspired by anyone or challenged by anyone. Yeah. And so I'm really looking forward to